The first time I saw him, he was standing over my father's body. His claws were still dripping. There was blood on the floor, on the rocks, on his jaw. My father wasn't even all the way dead yet. His chest was still twitching like his heart couldn't believe what had just happened. And Kai just stood there, breathing heavy, silent. His eyes met mine across the clearing, and I swear to whatever gods are laughing at me now, I felt the bond snap into place in that exact fucking moment, like some cosmic joke, like the moon goddess herself looked at me and said, "Watch this," and I screamed. I shifted so fast it tore something in me. I was barely more than fur and grief and teeth, and I still tried to lunge at him. I don't even remember if he moved. I don't think he had to. Someone dragged me away. I think, my cousin maybe. I don't remember his face. Just the feel of moss and dirt under my claws as they held me down while I screamed like I was dying too. I was dying, or at least something inside me was. And now he sleeps beside me. Now I wake up to the same hands that ended my father's life holding me in the middle of the night like I'm something fragile, like he's afraid I'll disappear, like he doesn't remember what he did. But I do. I remember every second of it. I remember how quiet it was after the fighting stopped, how his shoulders rose and fell like he was just tired, not triumphant, not proud, just like he wanted it to be over. And I remember the way my wolf didn't want to run, even then, even with blood in the air and my heart in pieces. She felt the bond first. She whimpered when she saw him. I wanted to bite her out of my own body for that. And the worst part, I stayed. I stayed when I could have run. I stayed when the council forced the mating as part of the treaty. I stayed when I had every right to say no, to tear out his throat, to do literally anything but fold into this new life like I was meant to be here. And I don't know why I'm writing this now. Maybe because he's asleep in the next room and I can't stop looking at his back, waiting for it to twist the way it did that night. Maybe because I'm tired of choking on this truth like it's my own blood. Or maybe because some sick, broken part of me finally admits it. I think I loved him. I think I still do. And I don't know what the hell that makes me. God, what the fuck is wrong with me? Before the war, I thought I knew what love looked like. It was the sound of my dad's laugh echoing through the trees before I even got home, like he always knew I was coming. It was him holding open the kitchen door with his shoulder because his hands were full of stew or tools or some random shit he picked up from the border patrol. It was warmth. Not just the fire kind, but the kind that sat under your skin and made you feel like nothing bad could ever touch you. Not really, not for long. He used to call me his shadow. I followed him everywhere when I was a pup, even into council meetings where I had no business being. I'd sit by his feet, listening to old wolves argue about patrol routes and trade deals like any of it mattered more than whether we were happy, safe, free. He never told me to leave, just rested his hand on my head and kept talking like I belonged there. I really thought I'd grow up to be like him, or at least beside him, second in command, maybe, or alpha after he stepped down, years and years from now when his back finally gave out and his gray beard got longer than his temper. He used to say, "You lead with your heart, pup, and that's not a weakness, just means you'll bleed for the right reasons." And fuck me, I believed him. I believed him when he said love was worth bleeding for, that our pack was family, that loyalty was everything, that our enemies were just lost souls who forgot how to be good. I believed in all of it, him, us, the way things used to be, and now I flinch when I hear claws on stone. Even if it's just Kai walking through the hallway barefoot, I don't sit near fire anymore. The smoke smells too much like what was left of home. I barely sleep. I wake up with clenched fists and a heartbeat like a war drum, and I look around for something familiar, and it's always him, the one who took it all from me. God, I sound insane. I miss the way my dad used to call me Alpha Girl, under his breath when I won a sparring match or stitched someone up without flinching. I miss how I never had to question if I was loved. I didn't have to earn it. I didn't have to survive it. I didn't have to wonder what it cost. And I know it's selfish. I know people lost more than I did. But sometimes I wish I could forget how it felt to be safe, because remembering it just makes this ache worse. I used to think love was loud, you know? Laughter, firelight, being known. Now it's just silence. And I hate that I'm starting to get used to it. He was our enemy. That part was simple. I was supposed to hate him. And I did. I thought I did. The first time I ever heard his name, I was maybe 12. 13. Still too young to be in strategy meetings but stubborn enough to sneak in anyway. They didn't kick me out. Not after a while. I'd just curl up in the corner behind the old weapons rack and listen like a ghost. Nobody really paid attention to the Alpha's daughter as long as I stayed quiet and didn't interrupt. Someone said the name, Kai Valen, and the whole room went still, like saying it summoned something. Like he might walk through the wall just because we were talking about him. It was weird, that kind of stillness. Grown wolves didn't get scared like that. Not in front of each other. He's too aggressive, someone said, blood hungry, mark my words, if he gets more land, he'll come for us next. And then my dad, calm as ever, just said, he leads like a cornered animal, that makes him dangerous. They all nodded like that was some kind of prophecy. I didn't see his face until months later. Some scout brought back a grainy photo taken at a council summit. It was printed on cheap paper and creased down the middle, but I remember staring at it for too long. His eyes were strange, not like a monster's, just sad, angry, tired, I don't know. Something in them made me uncomfortable. But still, I believed what they told me, that he was cold, ruthless, that he executed his own brother, that he didn't believe in Luna bonds, didn't even have a Luna, that he didn't need love to lead, just teeth. He was the kind of wolf we were raised to be ready for, not afraid of, just prepared. Like a natural disaster, you respect it, you brace for it, you know someday it's coming for you. And it did. And I was supposed to hate him, every second, every breath. But the thing no one talks about, not really, is that hate doesn't sit clean in your chest when the bond chooses him, when your own soul won't let you run, when your body betrays your memory. I remember the first night after the treaty was signed. I had my bag packed, I was ready to run. I had a contact up north, a cousin in hiding. I could have made it, I should have made it, but I didn't. I just sat there on the floor like a coward, staring at the moon like it owed me an explanation. I had every reason to leave, so why the fuck didn't I? It wasn't romantic, just to get that out of the way. People talk about the mate bond like it's this magical, glowing, fairy tale thing, like bells go off and birds start singing and you just know, like it's some beautiful, sacred thing gifted by the moon goddess herself. But when mine hit, I collapsed, literally, collapsed, in the middle of the clearing, with my father's blood soaking into the dirt and Kai's eyes locked on mine like he'd been waiting for something and now it was me, and suddenly my spine felt like it was snapping open from the inside out, like someone reached into my chest and twisted, hard. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move, my knees hit the ground so fast I thought I'd blacked out. I think I screamed. I think someone tried to help me, but I shoved them away. My body was burning and freezing at the same time and I was shaking so bad I thought my bones would split. And then, I smelled him. God, I hate that part. It's the worst thing, how good he smelled, like smoke and cedar and something wild I couldn't name, and it made me sick, actually sick. I threw up behind a tree 5 minutes later while someone tried to tell me it was the bond, like that made it okay. They said the moon goddess doesn't make mistakes, right? Tell that to the girl dry heaving while her wolf whines for the man who killed her fucking father. I didn't want it, I didn't ask for it, I didn't believe it, not at first. I thought maybe it was trauma, shock, blood loss, something, anything that could explain why my whole soul felt like it was trying to crawl toward him while the rest of me wanted to rip his throat out. I told myself I was imagining it, that it was a trick, a lie. I even asked the healers if maybe my bond got damaged, like maybe it was broken, defective, infected by grief or adrenaline or whatever the hell happens when your life explodes in one night. But no, it was real, it was clear, strong, unmistakable. Kai Valen was my mate, the man who stood over my father's body like a fucking reaper, the man whose claws were still wet, the man whose name was only ever spoken in warnings, the enemy. And I was supposed to belong to him now. No, fuck that. I remember punching a mirror in the council chambers when they said the bond couldn't be undone. I bled all over the floor and screamed at the elders that the goddess was wrong, that I'd rather die than let him claim me, that I'd never let him touch me, that I'd tear the bond apart with my bare hands. But I didn't die, and he didn't touch me, and the bond didn't break. It just sat there, quiet, patient. Like it knew something I didn't, like it was waiting for me to give in, and maybe that's what scared me most, that a part of me already wanted to. The council didn't care that he killed my father. I mean, they pretended to. They said the right words, a tragedy, a loss for all Pax. We grieve with you. But it was all just noise, a performance, a script they'd rehearsed so many times they forgot what any of it meant. They sat in that stone hall like gods pretending to be men, with their ceremonial cloaks and their perfect posture and their unreadable fucking faces. I was standing there in blood-stained boots, barely keeping my legs from buckling, and they were already talking peace treaties and alliances. They didn't say, murder, they said, an unfortunate necessity. They didn't say, my father was ambushed and executed. They said, he fell in fair combat, like it was a game. Like they didn't just cut the heart out of my family and serve it on a plate labeled diplomacy. I think that's when I realized none of it was ever about justice. It was about containment, damage control. The Pax were tired, the war was bleeding resources, and apparently my father's death was a convenient enough ending to wrap it all up with a bow, one less alpha to argue with, one less wild card. And then came the solution, the brilliant, balanced, politically sound solution: seal the treaty with a mate bond. Because fate had conveniently chosen the daughter of the slain alpha and the killer himself to be soul-tied. What a miracle, what a divine sign, what an efficient way to shut me up. I remember standing there while they listed the benefits like it was a fucking trade deal. This bond represents unity, they said. The goddess wants harmony. The people need a symbol of reconciliation. They looked at me like I wasn't a person, like I was a prop, a tool, a way to keep the peace. My grief didn't matter, my screams didn't matter, my fucking rage didn't matter. They cared more about the border lines on their maps than the blood on my hands. And Kai just stood there, silent, watching me, not smiling, not apologizing, just waiting. I wanted to rip their stone table in half. I wanted to burn their chambers down. I wanted to make them feel something, anything. But instead I stood there, 17 and shaking, while grown men told me how lucky I was. Lucky. Lucky to be bonded to a war criminal. Lucky to be the glue between packs. Lucky to be chosen by the moon. And I couldn't even scream, my voice just broke. I remember my mouth moving but no sound came out, like my throat was done trying to make sense of it all. They stole my father, they gave me a monster, and they called it peace. I wanted to kill him, God, I wanted to kill him. They gave me my own suite in his estate, like that made it better. Like throwing me in a bigger cage with silk sheets and a private bathroom made it something other than what it was, a prison with fancy curtains. I didn't eat, I didn't sleep. I counted the tiles on the ceiling and imagined exactly how I'd end him: a knife to the throat, poison in his wine, a blade between the ribs, twisted until he stopped breathing. And then I got my chance. 3 days after the mating ceremony, which I don't even remember, by the way, just the sound of my heartbeat in my ears and my hands shaking so hard I dropped the offering bowl. He came to talk, said he wanted to speak in private. His voice was low, like he thought being quiet made him less dangerous. Like lowering his tone would unspill the blood on his hands. He walked in, no guards, no armor, just him, in a plain black shirt, barefoot, like he was at peace in the place where my whole world had ended. I had a blade hidden under my mattress, one of the ceremonial ones, thin and sharp, the kind they use for blood oaths. It wasn't long enough to be lethal unless I got close enough to hit something vital. And I did. I tried, I really tried. I waited until his back was turned. Waited until he stepped past me toward the window, said something I didn't hear because the blood in my ears was screaming. I moved fast, months of training kicked in, muscle memory and fury and survival. But the second the blade touched his skin, just a graze, I swear, it was like my whole body revolted, my wrist locked, my legs buckled, my wolf snarled, not at him, but at me, like I was the traitor. I dropped the knife, my hands wouldn't close around it again. I tried to force them, but they were shaking too hard, like something deeper than me had slammed the brakes and said no. He turned around, looked at me, not angry, not scared, just hollow. You're allowed to hate me, he said, and I did, I do, but it didn't matter, because she, my wolf, didn't. She whimpered when she saw the scratch on his shoulder. She howled when I screamed. She curled into herself and begged me to stop like I was the one hurting us. I didn't cry, not then. I just backed away, pressing my back to the wall like it could swallow me. I felt like I'd pissed on something sacred, like I'd broken my own body. I wanted to throw up but there was nothing left in me to lose. He didn't move, didn't touch me, just left the room and closed the door behind him like he didn't want to wake me. And that night, I curled up on the bathroom floor, fists in my hair, and whispered over and over, why, like maybe if I said it enough times, the moon would answer. She didn't. I hated how calm he was, like he could wait forever. Like time didn't matter to him, like my rage didn't scare him, like he'd already made peace with whatever version of hell this was and could just sit in it, quietly, without flinching. He never knocked, never barged in, never tried to talk to me after that day in the suite when I dropped the knife. I half expected him to chain me up or scream or demand submission or something. He was an alpha, for fuck's sake. But he didn't even look at me for days, just nodded when we passed each other in the halls like I was a stranger staying in his guest room, a stranger who used to scream his name like a war cry. I think that's what made it worse, the waiting, the nothing. He ate alone, sat on the balcony at night and stared into the trees like they'd talk back, barefoot most of the time, wearing the same black shirts like he couldn't be bothered to look like the monster I needed him to be. Sometimes I heard him pacing, not angrily, just pacing, like a man trying not to drown in his own thoughts. Once, late at night, I heard him say my name through the wall, just once, soft, like a prayer he didn't want answered, and God's help me, I listened. I pressed my ear to the cold stone like some pathetic, curious child hoping to hear more, but he didn't say anything else, just that one word, like it hurt to say it out loud, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to. I hated that, too, that quiet hauntedness in him. That stillness, it made me start wondering things I didn't want to wonder, like why he hadn't tried to defend himself in the council chambers, why he didn't flinch when I tried to kill him, why he looked at me like he was the broken one. It didn't add up. Monsters weren't supposed to grieve. Monsters didn't make tea and leave it outside your door every morning, just in case you were hungry. Monsters didn't give you space. They didn't lower their head when you screamed at them. They didn't sleep on the floor in their own house so you wouldn't have to share the same roofline. So what the hell was he? Because if he wasn't the villain, then what the fuck did that make me? He left a blanket outside my door. I hated that I noticed. It wasn't dramatic or anything, just folded, neat, no note, no knock, no scent that lingered too long, just there, soft, clean, warm-looking, like he knew I wasn't sleeping and wanted to fix something he didn't know how to fix. And the worst part, the absolute worst fucking part, was that I stood there staring at it for like 5 full minutes before I picked it up. I wanted to leave it, wanted to kick it down the hall or shove it back under his door or burn it in the fireplace just to prove a point. I didn't need his pity. I didn't need anything from him. I was fine being cold. I wanted to be cold. It made it easier to hate him, but my hands reached for it anyway. It smelled like cedar, of course it did, and I told myself it was just a blanket, just fabric. It didn't mean anything. I was freezing. My skin hurt from how long I'd refused to crawl under the covers. I hadn't shifted in weeks, and my bones were starting to feel it. I deserved to be warm. That didn't mean I forgave him. That didn't mean I was softening. I curled up with it on the window bench, not the bed. Never the bed. That felt like giving in. I pulled it over my shoulders and stared out into the dark trees for hours like something might crawl out and devour me and save me from this quiet, confusing hell. But nothing came, just the wind, just the moon, just the weight of my own thoughts and the blanket that felt heavier than it should have. I didn't thank him. He didn't ask. He just left another one the next night, this time with tea, and I drank it. God help me, I drank it. He never apologized, not at first, not when I tried to kill him, not when I cried so hard my throat bled, not even when I sat through council dinners staring at the empty space where my father should have been, with Kai at the head of the table like that seat was ever meant for him. He just took it, all of it, the silence, the glares, the raw, open wound I became, and I told myself that was worse than cruelty, that it meant he felt nothing. But then, there was this night. I still don't know if I dreamt it or remembered it or if it was just my soul trying to crawl out of my skin while I slept. But I woke up screaming, not like a cute gasp or a shaky breath or a single startled cry. I screamed, loud, ragged, ripping, and I shifted, halfway, not enough to complete the change, just enough for my claws to shred the bedding and my jaw to ache like it wanted to snap. I was on the floor, naked and shaking and trying to remember where the hell I was, and I didn't even realize he'd come into the room until I saw him, barefoot, again, always barefoot, and standing in the doorway like he didn't know whether to come closer or disappear. And I lost it. I started screaming again, this time at him, words, curses, sobs, noise. I don't even remember what I said. Something about my father, something about how he'd ruined everything, how the bond didn't erase what he'd done, how I didn't want tea or blankets or his quiet fucking sadness, how I hated him, hated myself for being in the same house as him, the same world as him. I don't know how long I screamed, but eventually my voice cracked. My knees buckled, I slumped against the dresser and just folded, like my bones had finally caught up to what my heart already knew. And then he spoke, just one sentence, not dramatic, not rehearsed. If I could undo it, I would. That's it. No excuses. No, I was ordered to. No, it was war. No, your father tried to kill me first. Just that, quiet, almost broken, like it hurt to say it out loud. And I looked up at him through tears and snot and blood on my lip, and I didn't see the alpha. I didn't see the killer. I didn't even see the mate I was supposed to somehow survive. I just saw a man who looked like he hated himself more than I ever could. And for the first time since it all began, I didn't know who I hated more, him or me. I kissed him first. God, I wish I could say I regret it. I want to say I regret it, that it was a moment of weakness, that it meant nothing, that I was drunk or broken or just trying to win. But I wasn't drunk. I wasn't trying to win anything. I was just tired. It was after another council dinner, same cold smiles, same tight speeches, same side eyes from wolves who used to braid my hair and call me Little Luna. They wouldn't even look me in the eye now, like being mated to him made me radioactive. And he was quiet, like always, sat next to me but didn't touch me, didn't speak unless spoken to, didn't flinch when the elders praised the union for keeping the peace. He just nodded and drank his wine and looked exactly like someone pretending not to be bleeding. We didn't talk when we got back, not really. I walked past him in the hall. He turned like he might say something. I didn't let him. I just walked faster, locked myself in my room, tried to sleep, failed, got up. I found him on the balcony, like always, barefoot, staring at the trees like they had answers. I don't even know what I was doing there. I didn't mean to go to him. I just wandered, couldn't breathe inside that room anymore. And when I saw him, I didn't think. I just moved. 1 second I was watching him, the next, I was standing too close. The next, my fingers were in his hair and my mouth was on his, and it wasn't soft. It wasn't slow. It was messy and angry and hungry, like I needed him to shut the world out for 5 seconds or I was going to shatter. And he didn't pull away. He didn't ask. He didn't push. He just let me. His hands hovered near my waist like he didn't know if he was allowed to touch me, even now. Like he thought I'd disappear if he blinked, and I kissed him harder, bit his lip, pulled him closer like I wanted to punish both of us with the same breath. It didn't feel like love. It felt like desperation, like screaming through skin, like needing someone to see me, not as the daughter of the dead alpha or the reluctant mate or the girl who never cried in public, just me. And I knew, even as it was happening, even as his hands finally settled on my hips and my whole body trembled with something I didn't have a name for. I knew it was a mistake, but I didn't stop. I didn't want to. I still don't know what that says about me. I kissed the man who ruined my life, and I moaned when he kissed me back. He cried in his sleep. I pretended I didn't hear. The first time, I thought it was the wind. It was late, like blackout silence late, the kind of night where even the trees don't bother rustling. I was awake, of course. I barely slept back then. Still don't, really. But that night I was lying there on top of the covers. Blanket clutched so tight in my fists it left marks on my palms, staring at the ceiling and trying not to feel anything. Then I heard it, this low, cracked sound, not a growl, not a snore, something else. At first I thought maybe he was just talking in his sleep. I didn't want to know what about, but then it got louder, not words, just this soft, broken kind of noise. I got up, not because I cared. I didn't, okay? There was something about it, something wrong. My feet moved before I could stop them. I padded down the hall on autopilot, palms sweaty, breath shallow like I was walking into a trap, which I guess maybe I was. His door wasn't locked, it never is. And I stood there, in the doorway, in the dark, watching him writhe in the blankets, soaked in sweat. He kept whispering something, quiet, desperate. I had to lean in to hear it. He said my father's name, twice, once like a question, once like a prayer. And then he choked on a sob and turned his face into the pillow like he could drown it, like he could swallow the whole memory back down and bury it where I'd never find it. But I did. I heard it. I stood there and listened while the man who ruined my life broke himself open behind closed eyes. And I wish I could say I barged in and shook him awake, that I slapped him or screamed at him or told him he didn't get to grieve someone he killed. But I didn't do any of that. I just stood there, frozen, useless, watching him suffer with this tight knot in my chest like someone had taken all the air out of me and replaced it with questions I didn't want answers to. Because monsters aren't supposed to cry. They aren't supposed to whisper the names of the dead. They aren't supposed to look that small in the dark, like they're drowning in the same nightmares they created. I backed away before he woke up, closed my door quietly, crawled back into bed and told myself it didn't mean anything, that it didn't change what he did, that even if his soul ached, it wouldn't bring my father back, wouldn't undo the blood. But the next morning, when I passed him in the kitchen and he looked like he hadn't slept in a month, I couldn't look at him, not because I was angry, because I wasn't, not really, and that terrified me. He found me near the river, of course he did. Alaric always knew where to look. He was my father's second for almost 15 years. Half the pack used to whisper that he was the one who should have led after my father died, the other half just whispered that I should have died too. He didn't announce himself, just stood behind me like a fucking shadow and said, "So this is where traitors come to think." I didn't turn around. I just clenched my fists and stared harder at the water like maybe it could pull me under with just a look. Maybe if I wished hard enough. He walked closer. Crunch of boots on dead leaves. That same musky smell I used to associate with safety, now it just smelled like rot. "You're not even trying to hide it anymore," he said, sleeping in his den, wearing his mark, drinking his wine. "Has he bred you yet?" I snapped then, spun around so fast my vision blurred. "Don't talk to me like that." But he just laughed, no teeth, no joy, Just that bitter kind of sound men make when they think they've already won the argument. He killed your father, he said, like I didn't already know. Like I didn't have the blood-soaked memory carved behind my eyelids. And now he mourns him in his sleep, I snapped. God, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have said that. His eyes changed, like he saw it, the crack in me, the softness, the rot. So you do love him, Alaric spat. You really are weak. That word stuck, weak, like I hadn't dragged my own bones through grief and rage and forced myself to breathe next to the man who shattered everything I loved, like surviving was cowardice, like choosing peace, even broken, bloody peace, meant I deserved whatever judgment he could spit in my face. He stepped closer. Your father died with honor, and now you fuck the man who took his head. I slapped him. It didn't matter. He didn't flinch, just stared at me with those hollow eyes like I was already gone. Enjoy your crown, Luna, he said, voice like a blade, but don't think for a second anyone in the old blood sees you as one of us anymore. Then he walked away, just left, like he hadn't ripped open something I'd barely stitched shut. I sat there by the river for hours. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't hurting, but because I didn't know who I was supposed to cry for. My father, myself, Alaric, or the part of me that still wanted to believe love could save any of this. I just sat there until the moon rose, until my legs went numb, until my wolf curled so tight inside my chest she stopped howling, because the worst part? He wasn't entirely wrong, and I still didn't leave. I packed nothing, I just ran. It was maybe 2 nights after Alaric said what he said. Traitor, weak, bread, those words stuck in my throat like splinters. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't breathe in that house without smelling him. Kai, even when he wasn't in the room, I could feel him, like the bond wrapped around my lungs and just watched me, silent, waiting, forgiving in that infuriating, suffocating way, and I couldn't do it anymore, so I left. No shoes, no coat, just this desperate, reckless kind of need to get away. I thought if I ran fast enough, if I shifted, if I got deep enough into the woods where the scent trails vanished, maybe the bond would loosen, maybe I could breathe without choking on the ghost of what we were becoming. My wolf resisted. At first, it was subtle, slower pause, an ache in my chest. She didn't want to run, not away from him, not toward anything else, but I pushed her, forced her legs to move, deeper into the forest, away from the safety, away from the house, from him, from the war zone of my heart, and then she collapsed, literally, mid-stride, mid-breath, just dropped. My legs gave out, my ribs cracked from the inside, like my lungs had turned to glass and someone was stomping on them. I shifted back, screaming, naked in the snow, skin burning and bones twitching under my flesh like they wanted to crawl out and run back to him without me. It was the bond. It snapped, not like it broke, no, that would have been mercy. It snapped tight like a leash yanked by some invisible divine hand, like the moon goddess herself had decided I wasn't allowed to leave. I couldn't move. I just lay there in the dirt, twitching, shaking, my heartbeat ragged and too loud in my ears, and I thought, I'm dying, this is it. This is what it feels like to die from something you can't see, can't fight, can't undo. He found me, of course he did. He always does. He didn't speak. He just dropped to his knees and pulled me into his lap like I was something fragile, like I hadn't just tried to escape him, like I wasn't the traitor, the coward, the ghost of a daughter my father would have wept for. I should have fought him, bit him, screamed, something, but I just leaned into his chest, skin burning where mine touched his, and I sobbed, and I hated that it felt like coming home. I couldn't run, not because I didn't want to, because I physically couldn't. That's when I realized I wasn't free. I never had been. The gate was still rusted. That's the first thing I noticed, after everything. After the war, the fires, the bodies, after the council and the treaties and the matings and the blood, I thought maybe the land would have swallowed the house whole or something, like the ground would have had the decency to erase it, but no. It was all still there, burned, quiet, half-choked in weeds. I don't even remember walking there. 1 minute I was in Kai's territory, pacing, suffocating. The next I was standing in front of the gate to the old pack house, hand curled around metal that still knew my touch, still cut my palm the same way it used to when I was too small to open it right. The front steps were ash and bone, the garden was gone, the air smelled like rot and rain. I stepped over what was left of the threshold. I don't know what I thought I'd find. Her scent? Her laugh echoing off the stone. A piece of her scarf still clinging to the wind. There was nothing. The place was hollowed out, gutted, stripped of every memory except the ones that hurt. My childhood bedroom was a pile of melted beams. The fireplace where we used to curl up during storms was black and broken. The kitchen, God, the kitchen. Her teacups were still there, cracked and dirt-filled and still sitting in the fucking cabinet like she might come home any minute. And her grave, it's behind the house, under the old willow that never bloomed right. My father buried her there when I was 13, said she always liked the sound of the creek running nearby, said the roots would keep her warm. I stood in front of it for a long time, longer than I should have, and I didn't cry. I wanted to, I tried, I begged my chest to shake, my throat to close up, my eyes to sting, but there was just this weight in my ribs, heavy, still, like my grief had calcified. Maybe I ran out of tears, maybe the bond took that from me. 2. I sat down beside her stone, picked some moss off the edges, traced her name with fingers that didn't feel like mine, and I whispered, I don't know who I am anymore, because I didn't. I'm not the girl who braided daisies into her hair and believed in heroism. I'm not the warrior my father raised. I'm not the Luna the council thinks I became. I'm just floating between who I was and who I had to be to survive. I touched the dirt like maybe I'd feel her, a hum, a warmth, something. But it was cold, so cold. And that's when I realized I wasn't mourning her anymore. I was mourning me. The moon goddess is cruel. I used to pray to her. Isn't that pathetic? When I was little, I'd sneak out to the cliff behind our house and talk to the sky like it could hear me, like the stars cared. I'd whisper the same wishes every night. Keep Papa safe, let Mama's cough go away, make me strong, not strong like warriors, strong like roots, strong like the stories. I thought she listened, I really did. But maybe she was laughing the whole time, because the older I got, the more I realized that she doesn't grant prayers. She writes tragedies. Mate bonds aren't blessings. They're sentences, pretty little chains disguised as fate, and I guess mine was already sealed before I ever bled my first moon. She made him my mate. She didn't choose someone kind, or soft, or safe. She chose the alpha who ripped through my pack like we were nothing, the one whose claws carved through my father's chest while I watched, the one I dreamed of killing every night for a year. She chose him, and she didn't ask for permission. It didn't happen slow. It was instant, ugly, violent. I didn't even like him. That's the worst part. I hated him. Still do sometimes. His silence, his stillness, the way he breathes like guilt has a weight and he carries it like a crown. But the bond doesn't care. The bond makes you ache for the person who ruined you. It rewires your instincts, your bones. It curls your wolf around theirs like a prayer and dares you to deny it. And I couldn't. I tried. I swear I tried. I used to stare at him while he trained and imagine what it would feel like to slice his throat, to see him beg. But then he'd glance over. Just once. Just long enough. And my chest would seize like the air itself was mourning something. I didn't choose this. And maybe that's why I blame her. Because if this love was mine, if it was born from anything human, I'd know how to kill it. I'd bury it next to my mother. Burn it like we burned the fields after the war. Starve it, spit it out. But I can't. Because it's divine, cosmic, sewn into me like marrow. And maybe that makes it holy, or maybe that just makes it hell. Either way, it doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like a curse I keep kissing. I wanted to make him bleed. I know how that sounds. I do. But it wasn't planned or dramatic or even satisfying. It was impulse, ugly, primal, like something in me broke open and I just needed to see pain on his face. Just once. Just once. We were fighting, again, about something stupid. I think I said his name like it tasted sour and he looked at me with that empty face like he was already bracing for me to leave again. And I snapped. I don't even remember moving. 1 second I was yelling, and the next my claws were out and I was on him. Fists, nails, rage. And I dragged my hand across his cheek so hard I felt skin split. The sound it made was wet, sharp, real. He didn't move, didn't block, didn't growl, didn't shift. He just stood there, took it, blood dripping down his face like he expected it, like he wanted it, like this was the part where he finally got what he deserved. I stood there panting, hands still curled midair like I wasn't sure if I'd hit him or hug him next. He blinked slowly, one eye already swelling, and then he said, quietly, almost apologetically, "I'm glad it was you. What the fuck does that mean?" I didn't ask. I just turned around and left before I cried, before I begged. Before I kissed the blood from his mouth and told him I hated him and loved him in the same breath. Because he let me hurt him. He wanted it. Like maybe if I carved deep enough, I'd reach the guilt, or maybe he thinks my pain is the only thing that makes his sins real. And I hate that part of me. Some sick, shattered part. Liked it. Not the violence, not the blood, but the power, after all the silence, after all the waiting, after all the softness I didn't ask for. I wanted to be loud, to make a mark, to remind both of us that I'm not just his little cursed mate. I'm the girl who buried her father and lit the forest on fire and still wakes up screaming some nights. But after when the adrenaline left and all that was left was shame. God, I wanted to hold him, to clean the wound, to say I was sorry and mean it. I didn't. I just walked away and left the door open behind me. He didn't follow. He never does when I run, and maybe that's how I know he's still bleeding inside. He didn't kill my father to win, he did it to survive. He told me that in a whisper, not like some big dramatic reveal, not like he was begging for forgiveness or trying to rewrite the past, just soft, like he'd been holding it in so long it didn't even feel like a confession anymore, just a fact he was tired of carrying alone. We were in the woods. I don't even remember why. I think I was trying to get away from him again, but not really. I'd stopped trying to run in earnest. It was more like pacing in wider and wider circles, hoping distance would drown the bond. Spoiler, it never does. I'd been quiet, he'd been quieter, and then, like it was nothing, he said, he struck first. I stopped walking, my heart didn't, it just sprinted straight into my throat and stayed there. What? I asked, even though I heard him. He didn't look at me. He crouched near the riverbank like he wasn't casually flipping my entire fucking world upside down. Your father attacked me, he said. He wasn't supposed to be there, I wasn't either. We both knew what it would mean if we crossed lines that day. But you killed him, I snapped, because I had to say something, had to bite before I broke. You could have spared him. Kai finally looked at me, and I wish he hadn't, because his eyes weren't proud or cold or anything I could fight against. They were hollow, like there was still blood on his hands and he hadn't stopped washing them since. He went for my throat, he said. I reacted. I didn't think, I just lived, and God, I wanted to call him a liar. I wanted to scream, to claw his face open again and force him to take it back, to say it was war, that it was strategy, that he meant to do it and meant to break me and meant every wound that followed. But he didn't. He looked like a man who survived something that should have killed him too, and suddenly it wasn't so easy to hate him, not in the way I needed, because if he was telling the truth, and everything in me knew he was, no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, then my father wasn't the victim I'd made him out to be. He was angry, reckless, maybe even wrong. And that's the moment it started to unravel. The war, the stories, the bedtime legends I was raised on, the way we painted our enemies in shades of black and bathed ourselves in martyrdom. Maybe they lied to me. Or maybe we all just needed to believe something that made the blood feel worth it. But then what does that make me? A daughter of vengeance, a woman built on a lie, a mate to the man who didn't want to kill, but had to. I should feel relief, right? That he wasn't a monster, that it wasn't cold. But all I felt was shame. Like I'd been screaming for justice when I didn't even understand what happened, like I'd been holding a blade to his throat for something that wasn't even his choice. I turned away from him before I cried. And the worst part, he didn't follow. He just let me fall apart on my own, maybe because he knew I'd need to. Maybe because I deserved to, or maybe because he couldn't bear to watch me hate myself more than I already did. I thought I could forgive, I couldn't. That's the truth, isn't it? Everyone wants some clean arc, some redemption bullshit. Like love's this perfect solvent that erases the blood and the screams and the years I spent hating him so hard it kept me warm at night. It doesn't work like that. God, I wanted it to. I really did. After he told me the truth. After he looked at me with those tired, hollow eyes and said he didn't mean to. That he just reacted. I told myself that was enough. That he deserved grace. That if I didn't offer it, I'd be no better than the people who carved up my life and called it just politics. I told myself the past didn't matter as much as the bond. That fate knew something I didn't. I lied. We ended up in bed 2 nights later, or maybe 3. I don't know. Time stopped making sense once my rage stopped keeping score. It wasn't romantic, or soft. It wasn't angry either. It was empty. He touched me like I was fragile, but I didn't want that. I wanted to feel something, anything, even if it was just pain masquerading as closeness. I kissed him first. I climbed into his lap and told myself it was power, told myself it was healing. It wasn't. His hands were warm, his mouth careful, every breath between us was lined with ghosts. I kept waiting for it to feel right, for my body to scream yes the way it used to scream no. But all I felt was silence, heavy, suffocating silence. After, he held me like I was still that girl from the war, the one screaming on the battlefield, barefoot, blood on her dress, father's name in her throat like a curse. I buried my face in his chest and tried not to cry, failed. He didn't say anything. Just curled his fingers in my hair and pretended not to notice that my shoulders were shaking. I whispered, I'm sorry, more than once. I don't even know who I was apologizing to. Him, my father, myself, maybe all of them. Maybe none, but I couldn't forgive him, not really, because it wasn't just his hands that ruined my life. It was the after, the silence, the council, the bond, the way the whole fucking world just moved on and expected me to do the same. Forgiving him would mean forgiving all of it, and I'm not that generous, not yet, maybe never. I laid there, skin still tingling from where his lips had touched, and I felt cold. So I closed my eyes, and cried as quietly as I could. He didn't let go, and I hated him for that, too, because part of me still needed it. Alaric lied to me. That's what broke me, not Kai, not the bond, not even my father's blood soaking the dirt. It was him, Alaric, my father's beta, my goddamn godfather, the one who held me at my mother's funeral, the one who promised he'd protect me, who said Kai was a monster and that the only good thing I could do now was never look back. He said the war was necessary. He said they attacked us first, that Kai's pack wanted blood and land and nothing else. He said my father died a hero. And maybe he did, maybe part of that is still true. But then I found the letters, buried in a drawer that wasn't locked, because monsters never think they need to hide their fangs from the things they raise. They weren't even hidden well. That's the part that fucks with me the most. They were just there, stupid paper, stupid ink, stupid folded corners that smelled like smoke and old leather. The first one was from a scout, not ours, theirs. Pleading, begging for negotiation, saying they didn't want war, just clearer borders, safer crossings. Kai signed it. I recognized his handwriting before I even got to the bottom, and Alaric's response, cross again and you bleed, not my father's words, his. I read them over and over, like the meaning would change if I just blinked hard enough. But it didn't. The ink stayed where it was, and the truth screamed louder the longer I stared at it. He wanted the war. He provoked it, escalated it. He knew what it would cost and he pushed anyway, knowing the pack would follow my father, knowing I would believe every word he dripped like poison into my ears. I was a pawn, a grieving daughter, a weapon in mourning lace. He made me hate Kai more than I already did, told me vengeance was righteous, told me pain made me strong. He used me. I don't even know what else he lied about. Did my father really die protecting us? Did the council know? Was there ever a version of my life that didn't end in blood and fire? I tore the rest of the letters open with shaking hands. I don't even remember half of what they said, dates, orders, denials, threats, but I remember the way my stomach twisted, like something inside me had been rotting and I was just now smelling it for the first time. I ran outside, threw up in the snow. Kai found me like that, barefoot, crying, smeared ink on my hands like I'd murdered a library. He didn't ask, just stood there, waiting, like he knew, like part of him had been waiting years for me to finally see it. I looked up at him and all I could say was, "Why didn't you tell me?" His jaw clenched. He looked away. "Because you wouldn't have believed me," he said. And he was right. God, he was right. And I don't know if that makes it better or worse. I wanted revenge. I just didn't know who deserved it. There was a moment, maybe more than one, honestly, where I imagined killing them both, Kai and Alaric. One right after the other, maybe at dawn, maybe in the dark, maybe during one of those suffocating silences where the house feels too clean and too still, like grief had bleached all the color out of it. I pictured it in my head so many times it started to feel real, like muscle memory, like something I could actually do. Alaric would be easy. He's all pride and old bones now. I know exactly where to cut. I've imagined the way he'd look at me, shock first, then rage, then, maybe not regret, but surprise, at least. Surprise that his little soldier turned the blade around. Kai would be harder, not because he's stronger, but because he wouldn't fight back. I know that. I know it in my bones, in my blood, in that stupid bond that still thrums every time he looks at me like I'm something sacred. He'd just stand there, let me tear into him if that's what I wanted, let me end it, and maybe that's what makes me sickest, because some nights, I wanted him to. I wanted him to make it easy, to deserve it, to look at me the way monsters are supposed to look, cold and cruel and inhuman, so I could finally justify the blade in my hand. But he didn't, he never has, and that fucking complicates everything. Because what do you do with a murderer who weeps in his sleep? What do you do with a liar who raised you like a daughter, then fed your entire life into a war machine? What do you do when hate isn't clean anymore? Some nights, I wanted to watch the world burn, just to see if my father's ghost would finally shut up, just to feel something again, to make the noise in my head stop screaming. But I didn't kill them, I didn't even scream, I just sat in the snow that night, clutching those letters like they were bleeding, and wondered how many parts of myself I'd already buried without even realizing it. I wanted revenge. God, I deserved it. But I didn't know who I was trying to punish. Maybe it was just me. He asked if I loved him, and I just froze. Like my mouth forgot how to move. Like my heart slammed the emergency brakes and left me standing on the edge of something that didn't even have a name. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't candlelight and roses and some speech about destiny. It was late, I was tired. We were lying in that too quiet room where the shadows always feel heavier after I remember something I wish I hadn't. He just looked at me, so soft, like he was scared I might shatter, like he might shatter, and he said, "Do you love me?" 4 words, that's all. I couldn't say yes. God, I wanted to, I think, maybe, I don't know, I really don't. It's not that I don't feel something, I do. Every time he brushes his fingers against mine, it's like lightning under my skin. Every time he calls me by my name, my real name, not Luna, not girl, not daughter of the dead, I feel something unravel in my chest. But love is what I felt for my father. Love is the weight of my mother's hands in my hair. Love is war drums and lullabies and pack runs in moonlight. Love died with them. Whatever this is with Kai, it's twisted, it's tangled in grief and guilt and fate, it's bone deep and blood bound, and it doesn't feel clean. It feels like drowning in a lake that looks like glass. So when he asked me, I panicked. I looked at him and all I could think was, if I say yes, then all of this, everything that happened, it means nothing. It means I've forgiven him. It means I'm not angry anymore. It means I've betrayed them all. So I said nothing, I did nothing, just laid there, stiff as a corpse, staring at the ceiling while he waited for an answer I didn't have. After a while, he got up, didn't slam the door, didn't say a word, just left, and I let him, because maybe silence hurts less than the truth, or maybe I'm just a coward. I couldn't say yes, but the worst part is, I didn't say no either. I almost ended it all. I don't even know if I meant to, not really. It wasn't this big dramatic moment with a note and a plan and a final goodbye. It was just, quiet, empty. I woke up before dawn and everything felt wrong, too loud and too still at the same time. I couldn't breathe in the house. I couldn't look at the bed, or the blankets, or the half-drunk mug of tea he left on the counter like he lived here, like he belonged here. So I walked. No shoes, no coat, just walked until my feet went numb and my thoughts did too. The river wasn't far. It never is when you live in the woods. When you're raised in a pack that worships the moon and calls water sacred. We used to bathe in it before big ceremonies. My father said the river remembered everything. So maybe that's why I went there. Maybe I thought it would remember me, too. I stepped in like I was stepping into a memory, one foot, then the other. The ice burned at first, but then it didn't. It just dissolved, like me. The current wasn't fast, but it didn't have to be. I wasn't fighting it. I just kept walking. I wanted the cold to take everything. The bond, the guilt, the war, the truth, my name. I got to my knees and let it rise up to my chest, let it numb the ache behind my ribs. I tilted my face to the sky, and it was so fucking quiet, not even the birds, not even the wind. I remember thinking, this is peace. And then he was there. I didn't hear him coming, didn't smell him. He just crashed into the water like the earth had spit him out. His arms were around me before I could fall forward, before I could disappear. I screamed. I don't even know what I said. Maybe nothing, maybe just noise. He held me, dragged me out like I weighed nothing. His hands were shaking. He kept saying my name, over and over, like a prayer or a curse or both. When we hit the shore, I collapsed. He tried to cover me with his coat, but I just curled up in the mud. I couldn't stop shaking, couldn't stop crying. And then he cried. Kai, the alpha, the killer, the man with blood on his hands and scars across his soul. He cried like a child, fell to his knees beside me, soaked and broken, and sobbed like the world was ending, because maybe it was, maybe it already had. He kept whispering, don't leave, don't leave, don't leave, and I didn't. Not because I found hope, not because something clicked and I remembered some quote about life being beautiful or whatever bullshit people post online. I stayed because he pulled me out, because his voice cracked when he said my name, because he cried, and somehow, in that moment, that was enough. He never asked me to stay. That's the part one keeps circling back to, like maybe if I look at it from every angle it'll make more sense, or hurt less, or crack open into something resembling clarity. But it doesn't. It just sits there in my chest like a stone. He never begged, never made promises, never said, if you leave, I'll fall apart. He didn't play the martyr or the victim or the tortured soulmate. He just waited, quiet, steady, like he knew I'd either stay or I wouldn't, and that it had to come from me, and that's what makes it worse, or better, or, I don't know, because I chose it. I did, I stayed. After the blood and the nightmares and the endless unraveling of everything I thought I knew, I stayed. Not because of the bond, not because of fate, not even because he needed me. Because I needed something to stop breaking. And he was there, silent and aching and just as broken, maybe more. I used to tell myself I didn't have a choice. That the moon goddess wrote this story in the stars before I was Even born, that my wolf picked him the second his claws tore into my father's chest. But that's not true. I had a choice. I had so many fucking chances to leave. When Alaric spat in my face and called me a disgrace. When I stood at the edge of the river with death in my throat. When Kai looked at me with eyes that didn't expect anything, in return. And every time, I chose to stay. Not out of forgiveness, not out of love. Not yet, maybe not ever, but because this pain, it's mine now. This story, this bond, this ruined, twisted life I never asked for but somehow ended up dragging around like it's part of me. I stayed because walking away would have meant pretending it didn't happen. And it did, God, it did. So yeah, he never asked me to stay. And that's what makes it real, that I did. I marked him, God, just writing that makes my hands shake a little. I didn't plan it. There wasn't some grand declaration or moment of clarity, no prophecy or moonlit ceremony. It wasn't romantic. Or dramatic, or even particularly sane. It was just, raw, stupid, real. It was after a fight, not between us. For once, someone from the outer territories had crossed the line, called me Alpha's whore to my face. I don't even remember what I said back. Just remember Kai getting between us so fast I didn't even have time to breathe. He didn't shift. He didn't raise a hand. He just looked at the guy like he was already dead and said, leave, and the guy did, like that one word weighed more than steel. Later that night, I was still shaking, pacing the room, wanting to scream, wanting to run, wanting to tear something apart and not feel like prey, like some girl they threw to the wolf to make peace. Kai sat in the corner, quiet, always so fucking quiet. He didn't try to calm me down, didn't say anything stupid like, it's going to be okay. He just watched me with this ache in his eyes. Like he wanted to hold me but knew he didn't deserve to, like he was afraid I might break his ribs open if he reached for me. I don't know what snapped inside me. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way his breath caught when I got close. Maybe it was mine. But I moved toward him, climbed into his lap like I'd done it 1,000 times, buried my face in his neck and inhaled like I was starving. He froze, like he couldn't believe I was real. And then I bit him, hard. I sank my teeth into the place just below his shoulder, where the skin is thin and the bond lives closest to the surface. I bit until I tasted blood, until I felt it, that final snap, the tether yanking us into something deeper than choice or fate. He didn't stop me. He didn't even flinch. When I pulled back, there were tears in his eyes, not because of the pain. I don't think it hurt him, not really. I think it healed something. He looked at me like I'd just rewritten the sky. I felt sick and whole and terrified, because marking someone, it's not just mating. It's not just sex or politics or wolves playing house. It's forever. It's mine. It was me saying, I see your sins, and I'm binding myself to them anyway. And once it was done, I couldn't undo it, couldn't lie to myself anymore, couldn't pretend this was just circumstance or cruelty or survival. I marked him, not because I forgave him, not because I forgot, but because, somewhere between hating him and needing him, I started to love him, and I couldn't keep pretending I didn't. So yeah, I marked him. And when he whispered, thank you, like I just saved his life, I almost wished I hadn't. Alaric came for me with a blade. I should have known he would. I think part of me did know, like some quiet, ancient part of my wolf was already bracing for it, already rehearsing the moment his scent crossed the wards, and I felt it like a fever in my bones. He didn't announce himself, no threats, no warning, just steel and silence and fury, but I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't just there to kill me, he came to undo me, to peel the shame off our name, to cleanse the pack with my blood like that would somehow rewrite history. And I didn't scream, I didn't run, I should have been afraid, but all I felt was this stillness, this clarity that bloomed cold and bright and steady in my chest, like maybe I was ready. I hadn't touched a weapon in months. I'd let the training slide, let the instincts go soft under Kai's too quiet gaze and the warmth of a bond one didn't want to name. But when Alaric lunged, my body remembered. I moved like my father taught me, like he'd made me, like my blood was singing with every bone-deep lesson I used to resent. And I didn't hesitate. Not when the blade sliced my arm, not when he spit the word, whore, in my face, not even when he screamed, your father died for honor. You betted his murderer. I didn't hear that last part until later, anyway. Too much adrenaline, too much heat, too much of me snapping. I don't remember the kill. That's the part that won't come clean. 1 second his knife was raised, the next he was on the ground, coughing blood and looking at me like I was the monster now. And maybe I was. I knelt beside him, just for a moment, just to look. He tried to say something, choked on it, and I didn't comfort him. I didn't reach for his hand or close his eyes. I just stared. At what was left of the last person who ever looked at me and saw the Alpha's daughter instead of the Luna of our enemy. And I hated. How light I felt, not relieved, not proud, just clean, hollow, like I'd finally torn out the last root tying me to the girl I used to be. Alaric came for me with a blade. He didn't leave with one, and I never cried for him. My father would have hated me, not just disapproved, not just yelled or gone quiet in that way he used to when I disappointed him, the way that made me feel like I'd vanished. No, he would have hated me, fully, deeply, the way wolves hate weakness, the way soldiers hate betrayal, the way fathers hate daughters who don't fall in line. And I think I'm okay with that. God, that sounds awful. I know how it sounds, I do, but I've spent so long trying to keep him alive in me, in my choices, in my silence, in every time I swallowed my voice and played the dutiful legacy he left bleeding at my feet. I kept hearing his voice in my head, even when I kissed Kai, even when I lay next to him, still hating myself but letting him hold me anyway, even when I stayed. I could almost hear my father's growl, his rage, unmated or dead. That's what I'd expect of my daughter. I lived by that voice, for years, for too long. But after Alaric, after the blood dried and I stood over the man who used to fight beside my father, I realized something ugly and freeing and hard to admit. I don't want to be my father's daughter anymore. Not if it means living in anger. Not if it means letting hate eat me from the inside out. Not if it means choosing ghosts over the flawed, breathing, broken man who waits for me every night without ever asking for forgiveness he knows he can't deserve. My father would have called that weakness. He would have called me weak, tamed, claimed. But I don't feel tamed. I feel tired. I feel like someone who finally stopped bleeding for a man who isn't even here to see it. And maybe that's the worst part. He died for a war that wasn't clean, wasn't noble, wasn't even real. Just power and pride and old grudges passed down like inheritance. I think if he saw me now, wearing the mark of the man who took his life, carrying the scent of his killer, he'd snarl, he'd disown me with his eyes. But I'd look back, and I'd let him, because I'm not surviving for him anymore, I'm surviving for me. Some days I still wake up angry, like really fucking angry, not at him, or, I mean, not just at him, at everything, at the moon goddess, at the council, at my own stupid wolf, at fate, at the smell of his skin on my sheets, at the way my heart still stutters when he touches me even though it shouldn't, even though I don't want it to. I wake up and I remember, not his kisses or his silences or the way he whispers my name like a prayer, but that night, the blood, my father's body on the ground, the way Kai looked at me like he already knew I was his, like he didn't just rip my whole world apart seconds before the bonds snapped into place. Sometimes I wake up and I hate him again. Like it's fresh, like none of this happened, not the blanket he left outside my door, not the way he let me claw his face, not the way he held me when I almost let the river take me. I look at him while he's sleeping and I imagine picking up a blade and driving it through his chest. I do, and then I imagine the way his eyes would look at me when I did it. Not surprised, not even angry, just sad, accepting, like he knew I'd get there eventually. That makes me cry harder than anything, because it's not fair that I have to carry all this. That I have to forgive and forget and live with the man who took everything from me and still somehow made me fall in love with him. I hate that healing isn't clean, that some days, I want to curl into his chest and feel his heartbeat under my ear, and some days, I want to bite his throat out and end it all. I wish I could be one or the other, loyal or avenging, mate or daughter, lover or orphan. But I'm just this thing now, this broken thing with blood on her hands and love in her bones and too many ghosts in her head. And yeah, some days, I still wake up angry, but I still wake up. I'm pregnant. Yeah, I haven't told him yet. I don't even know how to start that conversation. Hey, remember that time we marked each other and cried like children afterward? Guess what? Now there's a whole other life growing inside me, cool, great, casual. It's not that I'm hiding it, I mean, okay, maybe I am, but it's not because I'm scared of him, not really. It's just, what if this breaks whatever fragile piece we've managed to scrape together? What if he looks at me and sees a mother, and then sees her? My mother, my father, a ghost of the woman he helped destroy. What if I see it too? What if I hold this child and all I see is blood? What if it has his eyes? I should be excited, I think, that's what normal people feel, right? Excitement, joy, wonder, all I feel is this tightness in my chest like I'm about to drown in something too big, too sacred, too terrifying. I pressed my hand to my stomach in the mirror last night, just stood there. I don't even have a bump yet. Nothing's changed, not really, and still I swear I could feel it, like a flicker of warmth, like, hope, God, hope, that feels dangerous. That's how this whole thing started. I think about telling him every day. I rehearse it in my head, I get as far as, Kai, there's something. And then I remember the way his face fell the night I told him I hated him, how still he got, how quiet. What if this is too much? What if it's not? I don't know. I don't know how to be a mother, I barely know how to be a mate, or a person. But I know this, whatever this is inside me, it's mine, ours, maybe, but mine first. It's the one thing no one decided for me, not the council, not the moon goddess, not war, not guilt, not grief, me. I chose this, I stayed, I survived, and now there's a heart beating that wouldn't exist if I hadn't. I'm pregnant, and I'm still terrified, but I think I want to live. This child will never know war, not mine, not my father's, not Kai's, not the kind that burns homes and hollows out souls, not the kind that teaches you to love through clenched teeth and survival instincts, not the kind that made me. I don't care what the elders say, I don't care what the council decides, I don't care if some ancient blood oath demands that pain pass down like inheritance. I am breaking it, right here, right now. I don't care if it kills me, because I was born into revenge, baptized in it. Every bedtime story ended in bloodshed, every lesson was, trust your pack, not your heart, and look how that turned out. I want my child to laugh without flinching, I want them to feel a mate bond one day and not think, what did I lose to deserve this? I want them to know that love can be chosen, that it doesn't have to be the thing that breaks you. They won't learn about war from bedtime stories, they'll learn about gardens, about wolves who chose peace, about mothers who didn't walk away. I will not teach them to hate, I will not tell them about the smell of my father's blood in the dirt, I will not show them where the scar on Kai's shoulder came from, the one I gave him in the middle of a breakdown, the one he kissed my hand over. I will not tell them I almost drowned myself in the river once. God, maybe I should, maybe they'll need to know what it took, what we survived to give them this quiet, but not yet. For now, I will let them grow in silence, in softness. I will read them stories about stars and oceans and wolves who ran instead of fought. I will not armor them in fear, I will not hand them a weapon and call it tradition. I will not pass down war disguised as love. This ends with me. I don't know if we're a love story, maybe we're just survivors, maybe that's all we ever were. Two broken things that didn't shatter the same way, two wolves circling each other in the wreckage, sniffing for softness, for something warm, something alive, and maybe we mistook that for love, or maybe it became love, eventually. I don't know. I don't *King know anymore. There were nights I looked at him and wanted to crawl out of my own skin, nights I couldn't sleep because I could still hear the way my father gasped, feel the earth shake when Kai pinned him down, and then other nights, I couldn't sleep unless Kai was pressed against my back, breathing steady, like maybe if I listened hard enough I could sink my heart to his and forget mine ever belonged to someone else. We have this ritual now, unspoken. He'll bring me tea in the mornings and pretend not to notice if I flinch when our fingers brush. I'll leave a blanket out on the porch when it rains, even though he doesn't need it, even though he never takes it, just in case. Sometimes we laugh, not the big kind, not the kind that fills a room, just soft chuckles at something stupid on the radio, or when I burn toast and he says, again, and I say, you picked me, remember, and he smiles. Like it wasn't a curse, like he'd pick me again. Sometimes I catch him staring at my stomach now, like he knows, even though I haven't said it out loud yet, and when our eyes meet, he doesn't ask, he just waits, like he always has. God, I hate him for that, and I love him for that, and I don't know which feeling wins. Maybe it doesn't matter, maybe it never did. We didn't fall in love, we fell through grief. We collapsed into each other because there was nowhere else to land. And maybe that's not romantic, maybe it's not clean, maybe it's not what love is supposed to look like, but it's ours, and some nights, that has to be enough. He sleeps beside me now, one arm flung over my waist like muscle memory, like instinct, like his body still knows I'm his even when we're not speaking, even when the silence between us is so thick it feels like a second pillow in the bed. His hair's longer now, softer, too. The scar across his temple catches the moonlight sometimes and makes him look almost fragile, and I hate that, because he's not. He's the same man who ripped my father's throat out. He's the same wolf who watched me collapse and didn't look away. And I'm the girl who stayed, the one who kissed him, who marked him, who loved him. God, I don't know who that makes me anymore. Some nights, I still wake up gasping, not from nightmares, not from memories, just from this weight, this knowing, that I have to live in the same skin as someone who forgave the unforgivable. I turn over and look at him, his chest rising and falling, like peace is a thing he gets to have now. Maybe it is, maybe he's earned it, maybe we both have, maybe not. I still see the blood sometimes, even when I close my eyes, even when his hand is in mine, even now. So yeah, that's it, I fell in love with the man who killed my father, and somehow, he loved me back. Make of that what you will.